Hi, and welcome to Inside Ocorian, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the amazing work being done by the Ocorian team across the globe. I'm your host, Neelam, Commercial Director for Corporate Services, and joining me today, we have someone who's equally passionate and precise about the work she does, Veena Karutasen. Veena, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Neelam. Thank you so much for having me on today's podcast.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. So, Veena, for anyone who does not know you, tell us a bit about you and about the work that you do here at Ocorian.
Sure. So I recently joined Ocorian at the start of this year to lead the regulatory and compliance service line in the UAE. It's a very exciting time being in the UAE at the moment. The market is amazing and the role itself has been very exciting. Ocorian has regulatory and compliance consulting practices globally in all of the key financial hubs after its acquisition with Beaufort Newgate. And that brings with it 25 years of experience providing firms with trusted advice when it comes to this space. The teams are ex-regulators or industry experts, and by launching this service in the UAE, we enable firms that are looking to set up or enter that regulatory landscape the opportunity to partner with us, and we can take them through the process of licensing, provide them services like outsource compliance and MLRO roles, and be able to provide compliance and regulatory advice just so they can navigate the landscape here, which we know is pretty tricky. So that's me in a nutshell.
So, you joined very recently, right?
I did. I joined in February.
Yeah,
So
must have been very exciting for you, new challenge.
it was a new challenge, very, very exciting challenge. And I loved the opportunity to be able to lead, particularly in regulatory consulting.
So even though you have recently joined here at Ocorian, you have extensive experience across the Middle East and also across Europe into regulated businesses. So what would be common misconceptions that you see new market entrants having when they try to enter this new regulatory landscape in the UAE?
So I touched on this earlier, but the regulatory landscape in the UAE is bespoke. It's a multi-regulator state, and that means that it becomes very complex to try and understand where you want to set up, what regulator is going to be governing the company that you're setting up. So all of these factors matter. Some of the misconceptions we see is firms are misinterpreting rules or trying to think about, actually, we can submit ourselves. We can come and land in Dubai or Abu Dhabi and we can set up and do all of this by ourselves. The issue you have in this instance is that they misinterpret rules or end up submitting incomplete applications and unable to really field the questions that regulators are asking. Now, as advisors, we do this activity on the daily, so it's an easier way to be able to engage someone that knows the market and understands this. I think another one is actually, and this one is very common, is to overlook the need for local substance, actually having boots on the ground and having a physical presence is really valued, particularly by the regulators. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, the UAE, and as a jurisdiction is really attracting a lot of firms and talent, but they want you here. Yeah. So having things like local directors or local leaders staying and having Emirates IDs is one of the areas that I notice that firms overlook. They think that they can fly in or fly out, and that arrangement, sorry for the pun, but just doesn't fly anymore, does it?
And UAE is not a bad place to be in, to be honest.
No, it's not. I mean, we're very lucky, so we're okay. And I think when you think about licensing in particular, from a regional perspective, firms often think that one license buys them a passport across the UAE. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And I think if we think about fund managers in particular, just for a moment, things like cross-border marketing or structuring their funds and making sure it's suitable for investor bases. These are really important considerations that they need to make. And I think often firms think fund structures will be really simple to set up.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you know in your experience that this isn't always the case. And there are certain factors we need to consider.
Yeah.
Investor types, fund domiciles, distribution strategies. Are you going to do private placements, or are you going to need to obtain another license to be able to operate? The use of platforms, etc. So it's a lot more complex than people often realize.
Yeah.
And understanding this is really important. I think it would be really interesting actually to understand what you see from your markets that you cover. You cover Africa, mainly South Africa and East Africa.
Exactly, yeah.
What industries are you seeing most coming into the UAE at the moment, and the trends that you're noticing?
Yeah,
really interesting to hear.
There are a lot of trends that I'm seeing, and something you just said is so funny to me when you mentioned different investor profiles. That is so diverse. That is, it can be from your well-established firm, it can be those startups, and it is just so fun seeing all these different type of profile trying to achieve a brilliant idea, and I just love it. And I've been working a lot into South African and East African markets, and it's a booming it's two completely different markets, but both are booming. Africa as a whole, we tend to think operates in a single way. It does not. Every country, every culture has a different way of operating, and for me it's a lot about learning the culture, learning about the people, learning about the work that they do. So from my what I have been seeing, a lot of evolution for a lot of those firms from these countries trying to go offshore, whether it's in the West, Middle East, or even in the East. But for them, Middle East has been just booming and growing. Everyone wants to be in UAE, whether it's your private equity funds, fintech companies, tech startups. You can have a lot of family offices looking to move here to the UAE. And rightly so, there are so many reasons for businesses to come to the UAE. Firstly, UAE is home to two of the most sophisticated financial centers. That's the IFC and ADGM, and both are based on common law concepts. So, and they have common law courts. And for these countries, South Africa operates, part of its legal system is routed into common law, and Kenya, part of East Africa, also operates on common law. To come into two jurisdictions, which is the IFC and ADGM, and having the comfort of having a similar legal system to what you have back home, gives you a smoother process to trying to move to these jurisdictions. Another thing would be ease of doing business in UAE. Everything just works here, like efficiency, transparency in terms of the decision making, in terms of the world-class infrastructure, and in terms of the way that you deal with regulators. They want to understand your business. It's not just a checklist that they are doing. They want to get into that nitty-gritty of why are you doing this here? How can we support you? What kind of logistics and facilities can we offer to you to operate to the best of your capabilities? And that's what you say by having foot on the ground here, because you want to be here. You have world-class infrastructure to make your business grow exponentially. One other factor for them to move here would be in terms of the very favorable tax regime that you have here. A lot of double taxation agreements that UAE has with a lot of countries around the world. And lastly, I would say the skilled professionals that you get. UAE has a very diverse pool of talented individuals. It's amazing all the different type of people you meet. I'm sure you must be meeting people in your role that are in diverse sectors at diverse levels into their career, but you're just learning. And for me, I think I'll keep doing this job because it's just, you just learn and learn every day. Every day is just a new discovery, a new piece of history that you add to your own story. And
Yeah.
at the end, you're just left with, wow, that's a beautiful book you got to write along your career, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of careers, you have held multiple roles, both as an in-house consultant specialist and as consultant
Yes.
for regulatory and compliance services. So how would you say both roles vary?
So that is a really good question. I actually like to touch upon the last point that you made about meeting different people and networking, and that creating such a lovely story in your career. Because it's one of my favorite reasons for being a consultant.
Yeah.
We get to meet a vast number of people to be able to help them and understand and see all of the different challenges they're experiencing, but also be able to provide solutions to them. I think that is also one of the differences between being in-house and being a consultant. I enjoy both roles. There are different advantages to both.
Mm-hmm.
Being in-house, you gain a really concentrated breadth of expertise where you understand the firm's policies, procedures, the type, the industry in that silo.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're a regulatory consultant, you deal with a number of firms from different sectors. You end up widening that breadth of knowledge and expertise for firms. And I think that is really valuable for firms when you think of the partnership side of things with compliance in-house and outsourcing arrangements. Now, when we think about outsourcing and the agility and the speed of things, where the trends, if we look at the UAE as a good example, for ADGM and DIFC, you have the ability to outsource your compliance or your MLRO functions. Now, what does that bring in terms of advantage? You see a compliance officer who not only knows your silo, sitting in your boardroom, able to give you industry expertise there and then. They are able to communicate advice on that level as well, or partner with your in-house team, which is super, super valuable, especially when it comes to project work, additional licensing support, or if there's any regulatory asks or changes in regulation. Often firms, when you're working in-house, you are really bogged down in terms of understanding and making sure that you're performing your job role. So when there's changes in regulation, the reaction can sometimes be slower than if you're partnered with a regulatory consulting firm, for example. I think also from a technology perspective, firms, they have their technology in place, but they may not have the same access to RegTech. So I've seen and enjoyed both sides of things. I think you can grow really strong relationships in-house, and those relationships can carry for a long time. A lot of my network are people that I've worked with 10, 15 years ago. So it's been a really wonderful experience being able to do that. But from a consulting standpoint, I love meeting new people. I'm a lot like you. I'm a people person, Neelam. Going back to the actual question, and it kind of makes you think about whether in-house compliance standalone is really effective. I think some of the struggles you experience is trying to campaign or getting other members on the boards or in other departments to try and understand compliance priorities or risks and support them and their strategy in a way that's safe. And I think that partnership is really important here, having an advisor that you can trust, or a model where it's hybrid or an outsourced arrangement that's bringing that expertise in the room and enabling a firm to make those safe decisions. And this is where the perception of compliance comes in. often, and I've felt it myself, don't get me wrong, where compliance is seen to be the bad guy, the policeman in everything. Now, you would have noticed, and I know from personal experience, the most effective partnership is commercial and compliance, because then your strategy is absolutely winning. From your experience, now you work with a lot of corporates, how many success or unsuccessful stories have you seen, and have you got one to share today?
Yes, I do have a lot, but I think I'll talk about the most recent one that I had. So I had a tech company who wanted to create several SPVs across different jurisdictions to be able to pool funds from different investors. And this tech company wanted to move at what I would say venture capital speed. Everything needs to be done yesterday, you know. But the countries where they wanted to set up in had very stringent regulatory standards and very high substance requirements. And what they had commercially designed, which might have worked in practice if you just look at the commercial aspect of it, would not have worked if you just put that in any jurisdiction, because compliance work, it doesn't work, legal framework doesn't work. It's structure which would be fly by night, or even, if you want to say this in French, éphémère. So it's just short-lived.
Let's hope your audience understand French better than I do.
Yeah, so instead of telling this client, no, I cannot help you, this is not an Ocorian approach. We are here to support clients across the different ideas that they have. So what we did is reach out to the colleagues that I have in these specific jurisdiction, because as you said, Ocorian is one. We operate as one. There is no segregation of, let's say, this office or that office. It doesn't happen. So in that way, I was able to understand what is the actual substance required in each of those jurisdictions. And working with external legal and tax advisors, we were able to give the advice to the clients in each jurisdiction what's needed in terms of, let's say, directorship, registered officers. Maybe you need a bit more in terms of staff, in terms of how to make this SPV work in that specific jurisdiction, so that in the end what we were left with was a structure that made a lot of sense commercially. With, you see the growth, you see that we will be able to respect the investment timeline, but in a framework that is well structured and that will be here for a long time, because that's what you want, right? So just to say that with compliance and commercial go hand in hand, because that's how you achieve the final result of what you want. So Ocorian can act as a bridge to helping you reach that idea, make that idea become an actual reality, because an idea is just an idea without a plan, right?
Yeah.
But speaking about helping clients get licensed, what are the common pitfalls that you see during the application process that clients face, and how early compliance planning can make or break an application process?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We touched on some of these points earlier in terms of misconceptions that clients see. And I think, just want to reiterate, the boots on the ground point is something that regulators will be looking at as well. They want to see the key personnel on the ground. And they should be Emirates ID holders, people that are residents, no fly-in, fly-outs. At the same time, the caliber of people taking these important roles, so whether it's your CEO, finance officer, compliance officer, MLRO, these are all people that will be interviewed by the regulator. So that process is no joke. You can't put forward, say, a 19-year-old who's really wants to go to Dubai and be part of this firm that's setting up. it's not going to fly. It's just, and these are examples that we've seen and had to speak to firms about, just because the test and the knowledge in terms of understanding practical challenges of the business also comes with experience and being a knowledgeable individual in that particular space. So that is something that's really important. I think also, to your point about having ADGM and DIFC being globally renowned areas and regulators, they operate under the UK common law. They have their standards at IOSCO and global standards. People often underestimate the regulator and the regulatory process. They think, actually, no, it's fine. We'll just go to Dubai. We'll go to Abu Dhabi. We'll set up. It'll be a piece of cake, really quick. Get our global procedures done. Absolutely easy peasy. That's not how it works. It's these regulators are regulators that you need to take seriously. They have their qualified personnel within their authorizations team. They are looking at your strategy. They are looking to make sure that your business model is tying in with your financial planning. Have you got the right capital requirements? Now, that in itself is a pitfall, because firms completely overlook the capital requirements piece. And the financial planning is often done in silo. So the regulators will receive a business plan, and it's completely out of sync with what they should see from financial planning. And these are the types of red flags that the regulator's looking for. And often firms that are trying to do the licensing themselves, for example, they don't realize this or understand that these pieces need to marry up, and making sure that this is actually something that's going to catch the regulator's eye. And what you were saying about early compliance planning or early planning in general, when you're planning an expansion or a relocation of an entity, it is super important to make sure that that piece is ready and you've thought about, one, the location, two, the regulator, and really thought about your risks in terms of how that's going to work for you and your business when you relocate or expand. I think one of the final things I'll say is actually firms often do remember the licensing part of things because they know they're going to be a regulated entity somewhere, but forget the arms and legs and the octopus-like being that comes up when you're moving or expanding. So actually setting up the right structures, the corporate side of things, making sure you have enough substance, being the theme of our podcast apparently, on the ground. And that includes governance structures, having directorships, etc. I think it'd be really good to understand, and I think we should talk about this here, is how we have partnered and what services I've spoken to you about needing for firms that I know are coming in. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah. As you know, you've been here, so you know Ocorian provides an end-to-end solution to the client. So from the time, and I'm repeating this, that the client has an idea, we are here to support him in putting that in place. So that goes, and that works with our, not our, just our expertise in terms of the local regulatory framework, the authorities, but also our global understanding, our global expertise, because we are still operating as one, right? So from the time that they need to do the full licensing process with the, let's say, DIFC, DFSA, DIFC, DFSA, going through the whole motion of getting the licenses, getting the full key personnel in place, putting together the business plan, submitting to the authorities, getting the licenses, getting the bank accounts open, having the structure up and running. But then once you have the structure up and running, you need to run it, right? So we are here to help you on an ongoing basis in terms of your administration, compliance, accounting, providing substance, registered office. But I think In a lot of cases, we go above and beyond. In some jurisdictions, we also support the client in their full physical relocation of themselves and the families here through the visa process. We know the country where we're living. We know what areas would work. You know, sometimes we talk to clients, we say, oh, you have kids, maybe you should consider X, Y, Z area. So it goes beyond the full suite of actual, you know, service, but also into a bit more of the lifestyle aspect of it. And also, I would say Ocorian works a lot into something that we call the matchmaking. If, for example, you have a project, you're looking for investors, and we work with investors globally. We know what strategies they are investing in. So for us, it's really a phone call away just to inform the investor, hey, we have an interesting project that you should maybe look into that could be good for you. So this kind of networking, matchmaking, a lot of our clients really appreciate that. And I say a lot of the times, we will do everything to get your structure up and running, and we'll run everything compliance, commercial. We'll make sure your structure is effective, is as per regulatory standards, is here for the long run. You're here to make the money. And that's the whole thing of how we collaborate with our clients in general. So we have been talking a lot about businesses looking to move here in the UAE. What is one piece of advice you would give any founder or any firm that is looking to set up their regulated business here in the UAE?
Plan. I can't sing off that hymn sheet enough. I would say call me too, but
Call us.
But in all seriousness, planning is key. Not just compliance planning, financial planning, relocation planning, looking at all of your risks and making sure that you have a plan in place and you are speaking to advisors that understand the UAE. It's absolutely crucial. And you?
Was one piece of advice. I would say think beyond just getting the license. The show does not stop once you get the license. That's when it actually begins. And for me, I think of it, any business that you're putting in place, at one point, you will be looking for investors, or you will be looking to sell your company, right? So what are the investors looking for? They are looking for something that's scalable, something that's effective, something that's transparent and has the right governance. So think beyond just getting the license. Think about how do you make your decision making, what's the process on that, who sits on your board of directors, all these people actually adding value to the running of the company. Think about which regulatory environment are you working in. Would investors be interested to invest in you? In a nutshell, make yourself as attractive as possible as a company. That's really what it is about when you start, and not just a company, a fund, private client structure, whether it's a capital market solution. Make yourself attractive in a way that you attract investors, you attract partners, you attract clients. That's the ultimate goal, but that's one piece of advice that I would give clients if I had to.
Interesting.
Speaking of making companies become more scalable, having strong compliance controls in place, how do you see the collaboration between compliance and commercial helping and working together in helping along this whole process?
And this is for Ocorian or for our clients?
For Ocorian.
Okay, so this is a really good question because since I've joined, I think that relationship between commercial and compliance services has been invaluable. Partnering with commercial has enabled us to access a network of clients or prospects that you see in each of the service lines or across the service lines. It also means that when we are speaking to prospects, we have the opportunity to provide them with more information on areas that maybe from a regulatory side we may not have access to that knowledge. So from a corporate and commercial standpoint, you have a lens of all of the 5 service lines and have the ability to guide the firms in terms of structuring, corporate setup, and enabling them to understand the risks involved, as well as guiding them to making sure they're operationally set and efficient. And like you said earlier, good to go for future planning purposes. From a compliance standpoint and a regulatory standpoint, we really complement that piece by enabling them to have an understanding of the regulatory landscape and the environment that they're looking to set up in, being able to provide them some trusted advice, as well as supporting them with conversations with the regulator and guiding them with how and where to set up. And I think from your side, some of the conversations that we've been involved in have been very much even to a level where we're guiding firms on a personal standpoint, like you mentioned, like literally explaining where personnel may better be suited, whether it's Dubai, whether it's Abu Dhabi, whether they've got families, whether they're young and single, and
whether they have horses.
Whether they have horses has been a question, and that's not just from a people standpoint. We established we're both people, but actually being able to provide a really good understanding and a bit more colour to the move and setting up a corporate. So it's just having that knowledge and knowing that actually if you're a DFSA entity, regulated entity, for example, stay within the DIFC vicinity. Same for ADGM, etc.
Yeah.
And how about from your side? I mean, I've spoken about a number of factors or reasons that I think it's really good that we collaborate. And my experiences to date, short as it is, but it's really helped in terms of the conversations we're having with firms looking to the UAE from the likes of the UK, Hong Kong, Singapore. How do you feel about this? Do you feel the same in terms of the collaboration and commercial meets compliance?
From my perspective, commercial and compliance work hand in hand. The collaboration is just critical. If there cannot be one without the other, because it just does not work. So compliance is here to put strong regulatory and legal stance, have a solid background to be able to put the client's vision in place. Commercial is here to understand about the industry dynamics, to understand a bit more about the markets, to understand a bit more about the clients themselves, and to say, as per our experience, our expertise, what are the different maybe structures, what are the different maybe, let's say, requirements in terms of service providers that they need. So both would work hand in hand to take a business to the level where you make it becomes very credible to the regulators, because that's what you need ultimately, right? To have a company that's credible, you need to have something that has a long-term expansion plan. Compliance is not here, from my perspective, to slow you down. With compliance and commercial working hand in hand, I can explain to you the vision of the client in a way that would make more sense to you, to understand that it's not just one random idea which makes absolutely no sense, because we spend more time with the clients, we learn about different industries, different cultures, different countries, because for me that's what makes a commercial person successful. You need to understand the people. Then you understand the business. You need to understand the culture, I am working with someone is not the same way that I'm working with someone else, right? And for me, both are absolutely critical in making your company scalable, in making your company credible, in helping you achieve the growth that you have been wanting to achieve. And from this conversation that we've been having, it has been really interesting to see your transition from the beginning into the whole process of it, because we started as Boville Newgate here in Ocorian, which became afterwards an Ocorian company, which I was just more than happy having our own in-house compliance and regulatory services, because it just adds value to what Ocorian is now able to deliver. But Vina, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here today. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, a few insights into the fascinating world of regulatory and compliance. And thank you for sharing a few laughs with me.
It's been really fun, Neelam. Thank you so much for having me today. And it's been great to hear a lot more about corporate and your experiences as well. So thanks for sharing those as well.
And thank you, viewers, for tuning in inside Ocorian. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.